Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of YakShore Outdoors. Today we're going to talk about location. Location in winter is extremely important. Winter fishing is a lot different than summer fishing or your normal everyday fishing. You can't just walk up to a spot and cast out to hope to catch something. You have to actually find the fish. They're usually hunkered down. They're not moving around as much. Water's colder. They're cold-blooded animals. They definitely prefer warmer water, warmer weather. There are some species that are more active in cold water, but a lot of them are going to prefer the warmer temperatures. Otherwise, they're going to be hunkered down rather, on structures such as ditches, ledges, holes, current seams, all that kind of stuff. And it's a little bit different when you're fishing on a river, but it's a lot different when you're fishing on a lake. The river tends to keep the water cooler in the summer, keeps the water same temperature, not necessarily warmer, but same temperature, and there's less variance in the winter, unless there's like a really heavy rainfall. There's also more oxygen in the summer on the rivers, obviously, but there ends up being more oxygen on the lakes in the winter due to the colder weather. The oxygen is more dense, it mixes up better, all that good stuff. So today we're going to cover some tips on how to find fish in the winter, what you're looking for, varied on species. Obviously it varies a little bit, but today we're specifically focusing on carp. But these all apply to the same thing. If you're fishing for catfish, fish walleye, sauger, white bass, I mean, there's like two differences really. On those predatory species fish, obviously they're going to chase bait fish, so at that point you're better off studying what bait fish do in the winter. Which again is all relating to structure and temperature. If you have a warm water discharge somewhere, then the bait fish are going to congregate there if the water's really cold. If you have a couple of really sunny days, then those sunny days are going to change the water temperature, so you might see fish move around more, and obviously the predatory fish are going to follow the bait fish, period. But yeah, so let's get into it. Now, the first tip I'm going to give you guys is that experience matters. If you've caught fish in the past at a certain time of year or a certain area of water, certain depth, certain contours, certain actual structure points, log jams, etc., obviously all that has something to say and have something to be said when it comes to whether the fish is there or not. If you consistently catch fish on wood piles in the winter in January, February, then obviously you should keep fishing those wood piles. In terms of carp, it's more of water depth than anything. Yeah, they like structure, and they'll hunker down in structure, but a lot of them, especially on these big lakes and reservoirs in the south, they'll shoal up, which is another word for schooling, and you'll have these pods of fish that are in between 5 and like 50 or more. I mean, there's some people have caught images of fish that were multiples of hundreds swimming around together. I mean, it's absolutely insane. Taking that into account and thinking about that, it just goes to show how important it is, because if you can find a shoal and get them feeding, you're going to be catching fish all day. If you can't find them, it's going to be few and far between. Now, obviously, there are some ways to get around that. You can pre-bait if your state allows it, which will help draw in some fish. It'll help keep some fish in the area, or at least keep them visiting, because carp can be trained. It has been proven they can be trained like a goldfish. If you feed them at the same time of day for weeks on end, they'll keep coming to that same spot. As long as it has food every once in a while, they will keep coming back to that spot and checking it out. So there's kind of a little hack or cheat code for those who are interested in the whole why pre-bait type thing. But yeah, the first tip is going to be looking for structure and going by experience, because if you, again, it says so much when you know you've already caught fish there. So yeah, that's tip number one. Go by experience if you have it. If you don't have it, there's a couple of things we'll go over here in just a minute, and yeah, that's tip number one. Go by experience. Tip number 2 for carp fishing is watching the water. I am out here just at sunrise right now, checking out this new spot, looking to see if I see fish. Carp are notorious for showing themselves, especially if the sun's coming up or the sun has been out. They'll completely clear the water. So if you are able to see them, then obviously you know they're there. That's just like experience. It's knowing where the fish are at. If you don't have the experience, then you can or if you're trying a new area so you don't know, go sit in the spot, watch the water, check out the wildlife. You know, obviously we've talked about other videos in the past. If you see birds, you know there's bait around. If there's bait around, there's going to be predatory fish around. If there's some sort of fish around, typically speaking, you're going to have some carp around too. I know a lot of people are like, oh, carp are trash fish. Carp only eat garbage. Carp only do this. Carp only do that. Well, carp actually really like mussels. Carp also really like crayfish. On top of that, they do like eating plant-based things, but their main diet is actually, and especially in Tennessee, is actually mussels and crayfish. So taking that into account, if you're able to find these bait fish, which are also chasing, you know, mussels and crayfish, and they'll relate to the same type of structure as those creatures, then again, you're still in the right area. But obviously, if you have one completely clear the water or show itself, then you know that they're there. And it makes a huge difference. And so that's tip number 2, is actually go sit on the water and actually look for fish, study it, see what's going on. Because a lot of things can be just told by just looking. You know, or you could cast a line out and sit and sure and wait, but if you have a few minutes, like if you're gonna go fish on a weekend, you know, go pick a day during the week, you know, either before work or after work, where you can go sit there and watch that area and see what happens. A lot of times they'll tell on themselves. Tip number 3 is going to be pre-baiting, or thinking about your baits and your presentations. They're going to be different in the winter. Again, these fish are moving slower. No matter what species of fish, the majority of them are moving slower than they are during the warmer months and during warmer water temperatures. So you're going to want to slow your presentations down if you're using artificials or live bait. But in the aspect of carp, you're going to want to pre-bait still to hold the fish there, but knowing that their digestion isn't as high as normal, you wouldn't want to throw out as much bait. Some guys know me, I like to really heavily pre-bait spots, especially in the summer if I'm planning on taking my wife out for the weekend, because I want to make sure she has a good time. There have been days where I've thrown like 25 pounds of sweet feed or corn into the lake, which is absolutely insane to some people. But I mean, if you really think about it, it's only like 2 5-gallon buckets. It's not a lot, especially when you consider the fact that carp can eat multiple times their weight a day during the warmer months and post spawn, like right after they spawn. And so being able to take advantage of that is huge. Again, that's if your state allows it, right? So for some states, you're not allowed to chum, but in some states, you're allowed to use pack baits, because as long as the bait is on your hook or around your hook, it's legal. So yeah, you may not be able to chum actually by the bucket full like we do here in Tennessee, but you can use a pack bait, which, take that as you will. Some people are going to say that's absolutely trash and horrible idea to do too, but you can take a pack bait, put it around your sinker and around your hook, and in a lot of places that's legal because it's still around your hook. So you cast it out there, then you have a nice little chum ball around your hook bait, which can give you an edge. And in the winter especially, anything that's a little more strongly scented, whether that be molasses, whether it be garlic powder, whether it be powdered milk, there's lots of things people use. I mean, you can just Google carp bait recipe and you get tons of stuff. I know one of the most popular ones is actually using strawberry jello, and that gives you a scent cloud, and that scent cloud can pull fish when they come swimming by, pull them down to your bait, and at least have them checking it out. And if you got them checking it out, then you're doing something right, and you're more likely to get a fish to bite, obviously, because of that. But your presentations do have to change in the winter because they're moving around so slow. You want something that's highly attractive, because they're just as easily going to pass the whole pile of bait as they are to cover over top of it when they're moving around slow in these schools. So you have something that has a little more scent, a little more disbursement of smell, covers a wider area. Especially again, if you're chumming, you can chum a whole area, have rods out of every section of it. Like if you chum a 100-foot area and you have one on each end and in the middle, you're gonna have a better chance than obviously if you have just one pile out there. But that leads me to my next tip. Be willing to move, be willing to change spots, and be willing to cast out again. You know, if you go and find these structures, whether it could be something simple. It could be a ditch where, you know, it goes from a wider area of deeper water to a thinner area of deeper water, still the same depth, right? But it looks like it goes out and then it does the same thing on the bottom, right? So you have this ditch that's shallower. Fish are gonna go through that if it's the same depth because they'll feel safer. They're not gonna want to go up in the shallow water close to the top of the water where predators are. and whatnot. So if you cover that area, you have it's a high percentage area, because you literally have a spot where they're focusing in. It's the same concept people use with crappie fishing for like under bridges and stuff. When you have a giant lake and you have a bridge that goes across and it narrows that channel down, and it's two sides of the lake in that narrow channel, those fish are in that narrow channel. And people have been using that concept for years and they don't even realize it, right? But you've literally, it's basically a highway for fish. And so by doing that, again, you're putting yourself in a high percentage chance, high percentage area. It won't take as much pre-baiting if you are pre-baiting, because you're in that one spot as long as they're there. Obviously, tip number 1 and 2, know from experience, or see the fish if you can, right? If you're able to do one of those two things and have a high percentage area like that, your chances go through the roof. But yeah, and then obviously, that's all fine and dandy if you can get all things to work, but what happens if it don't? Well, then again, get up and move. If you find, from experience, like in my experience here, anywhere between 8 and 15 feet, or even 8 and 20 feet is like the sweet spot, pretty much year round, for carp. The only thing that changes that is whether or not there's a giant mussel bed that was out of the, is barely in water and all of a sudden it's in deeper water, or if there's a lot of weed lines. Stuff like that changes it, obviously. But in terms of winter fishing, where nothing really changes, everything's dead, everything's hibernated or whatever, the water starts warming back up. Like in this case, it's February. We've had some warm weather coming through. It is changing the weather slightly, or the water slightly. It's gonna be a little warmer this week. The sun's been beating on it, especially in these shallower areas. You're gonna see fish that come up and try to sunbathe. And carp are notorious for sunbathing. Like that's what I'm talking about when they go to show themselves. They're either sucked in a bunch of dirt while they're eating and they're trying to clear their gills, which is why they go really fast and completely out of the water. But a lot of them will come and just roll in the sun. Like they prefer warmer water, they prefer the sun. So if you're able to fish in sunnier weather, in those shallow water areas, especially if you're able to see a fish or two, I mean, you're going to increase your chances. But again, sorry, going back to the point number 5, right? Ramble. But if you find a spot and you're like, I don't like this, I don't see anything, I've been here a couple hours, no bites, consider moving. Or even like if it's in the same week, like this week, it's supposed to get warmer and warmer and warmer the whole entire week. So if I was to fish, today, didn't get any bites, then tomorrow I might consider a different spot. I would look for the same things. Usually if I'm going out spot hunting, I'll pick 3 or 4 different spots that are relatively close drive. All the same concepts though. I've looked for structure. I've caught fish there before. Stuff like that. So it makes a big difference. But pre-planning and doing that stuff ahead of time will really up your game and will really up your chances. So I hope you guys can take something from this. It's a relatively short video, but that's my 5 tips for finding any kind of fish in winter, but in particular carp. You look for, go off experience, look for fish, like actually see the fish. Pre-bait, your presentation needs to be a little bit different, whether it be higher scent than normal or a little bit less than normal, because you don't want to completely fill the fish because they won't eat either. Obviously you can shut them down. The 4th thing being, have multiple spots checked out and thinking about it ahead of time. But 5 is definitely be willing to move. So I hope those things help you guys out, and if you got any questions, please put them in the comments below, and we'll check you guys out next time on YakShore Outdoors.